In the cold darkness of space, far beyond the well-charted systems of the Galactic Council, a fragile cry for help flickered through the void. A desperate signal sent from the Veridan homeworld, a planet known for its beauty and delicate ecosystems, but not for war. The Veridans were a peaceful species, slender and graceful, with minds gifted in science and technology, yet untested in the harsh realities of battle. Their world, lush and vibrant, had never prepared them for the nightmare, now unfolding. It began quietly, with shadowy ships appearing at the edges of their system, marauders who cared nothing for diplomacy or mercy, driven only by conquest and greed. The marauders overwhelmed the Veridan defenses, tearing through their satellites and communication arrays, and soon the peaceful world found itself under siege. The Veridan leaders scrambled to send out a distress call, a clear, coded SOS broadcast across the stars, hoping the wider galactic community would hear and come to their aid before it was too late. But the galaxy was vast, and help was slow to arrive. Within the council chambers, representatives from different worlds debated endlessly. Would they risk their own fleets to intervene? Was this conflict their concern? Questions swirled with indecision as precious time slipped away. Meanwhile, the Veridans fought to hold their ground, their once pristine cities now crumbling under relentless attack. Just when hope seemed to wane, the Veridans' communication consoles flickered with the sudden appearance of an unknown fleet on their scanners, a massive armada unlike any other, bearing no known flags or symbols. The ships were dark and rugged, built with sharp angles and reinforced hulls that suggested survival in the worst conditions imaginable. The Veridans could hardly believe their eyes as the mysterious fleet announced itself, not with words, but through decisive action. This was the arrival of the Deathworlders, humans who hailed from a planet infamous for its deadly environment, a world where only the toughest and most adaptable could survive. These humans had earned their name across the stars, known for their brutal training, relentless spirit, and refusal to yield even in the face of overwhelming odds. Their ships, unlike the polished vessels of the Galactic Council, looked battle-worn and practical, built for endurance rather than show. The Veridans watched, a mix of awe and fear gripping their hearts, as the Deathworlders moved swiftly toward the marauders. There was no time for lengthy negotiations or political debate. The Deathworlders communicated in simple, clear commands and acted with the precision of hunters who knew their prey intimately. To the Veridans, it seemed as though an unstoppable storm had arrived, one that would either save them or destroy what little remained. Yet beneath the intimidating presence of the fleet, there was a strange hope. The Deathworlders didn't come as saviors pleading for peace. They came as warriors ready to fight, willing to face death itself to protect a species they barely knew. Their arrival sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Messages poured in from other civilizations, some curious, others skeptical, but all watching as the Deathworlders prepared for battle. The Veridans, despite their fragile nature, found a new courage stirring within them as they saw these fierce humans stand against their enemies without hesitation. No diplomatic pleasantries were exchanged, no elaborate plans made. The Deathworlders simply declared their presence and advanced. The marauders, who had grown arrogant from their easy victories, suddenly faced an opponent unlike any they had met before. The Deathworlders' ships unleashed a storm of firepower and tactical brilliance, disrupting the marauder formations and cutting through their supply lines with surgical strikes. The Veridans could only watch and hope as the skies filled with explosions and smoke. The battle was far from over, but for the first time there was a glimmer of light in the darkness, a chance that the Deathworlders, born from a planet that seemed to defy survival itself, might be exactly what the Veridans needed. As the fleet moved deeper into the system, the Veridans sent word of thanks, though they knew the fight was only beginning. Suspense hung heavy in the air. Would these Deathworlders be able to turn the tide? Or would the cost of their arrival be even greater than the marauders' threat? In the silence that followed each attack, the Veridans could hear only the distant roar of engines and the steady pulse of determination beating within the hearts of these alien warriors. The story of survival and unexpected alliance was just beginning, and no one could yet guess how far the Deathworlders would go to protect a world not their own. The arrival of the Deathworlder fleet was unlike anything the Veridans had ever witnessed. From the black edges of their star system, the hulking shapes of massive ships loomed into view, cutting through space like dark shadows. These vessels were raw and unpolished, built not for show or diplomacy, but for pure survival and efficiency. A testament to the harsh world their human creators came from, a planet where storms could tear cities apart, where predators waited, silently in the night, and where only the strongest could live through the endless trials. The Viridans, who had lived in peace and beauty, stared in both awe and fear as these strange new ships aligned in formation, ready to unleash their power. The crew aboard the Deathworlder ships were hardened warriors, faces weathered by years of training and battles, eyes sharp with a focused determination that spoke volumes about their origin. They had faced death countless times on their homeworld and had emerged stronger each time. Now, in the depths of space, they prepared to face an enemy just as ruthless as the environment they had come from. The Marauders, confident from their swift conquest of the Veridan defenses, were completely unprepared for the storm that was about to descend upon them. They had never encountered an opponent so brutal and relentless, one that seemed to anticipate their every move and strike with deadly precision. While the Galactic Council hesitated and debated their response, the Deathworlders acted immediately, their commanders using strategies learned in the fire of their own savage planet. They moved quickly, coordinating their fleet with silent signals and prearranged commands that allowed for near instantaneous reactions across vast distances. Unlike the careful, slow tactics common among other species, the Deathworlders thrived on unpredictability. They adapted their fighting style to the unpredictable environment of space warfare, just as they had adapted to the dangers of their own home. Their ships were fast and heavily armed, equipped with weapons that combined brute force and subtle finesse. As the first salvos were fired, the Marauders' formation shattered under the unexpected assault. Explosions blossomed in the void, lighting up the darkness with violent bursts of fire and debris. The Deathworlders did not give their enemy a chance to regroup or mount a counterattack. Instead, they pressed their advantage with relentless energy, striking hard and fast at the Marauders' supply lines and command ships. The Veridans, watching from their hidden bunkers in damaged cities, could barely believe what they were seeing. This raw, unyielding human force was unlike anything in their histories or legends. The Deathworlders fought with a ferocity born of having lived through constant danger, and they showed no fear, no hesitation. Every move was calculated, every strike meant to cripple the enemy as quickly as possible. Where the Veridans had only been able to defend and hide, the Deathworlders took the fight directly to the Marauders. They used tactics that no one else dared to try. Ambushes from unexpected angles, rapid boarding maneuvers, and the use of environment as a weapon. Their ships could survive in asteroid fields and debris clouds, moving through places others would avoid, turning the battlefield itself against their foes. The Marauders, caught off guard, scrambled to respond but found themselves overwhelmed by this new kind of enemy. The Deathworlders' resilience shone brightest when their own ships were damaged or outnumbered. Rather than retreating, they doubled down, using every resource at their disposal to press the attack. Their crews worked in perfect harmony, moving, like a well-oiled machine trained to face death yet determined to win. The Veridans, despite their fragile nature and fear, found themselves inspired by this display of strength. For the first time since the invasion began, hope returned to their hearts. The Deathworlders were not just soldiers. They were survivors who carried with them the fierce spirit of a planet where giving up was never an option. This spirit spread quickly among the Veridan resistance fighters, who began to rise from the ruins with renewed courage, ready to fight alongside their new allies. As the battle intensified, it became clear that the Deathworlders were more than just reinforcements. They were a force that could change the fate of the entire system. The Veridans saw their enemies falter as the Deathworlders cut through their ranks with brutal efficiency, leaving little time for the Marauders to regroup or plan. Every strike by the Deathworlders was precise, aimed at crippling the enemy's key assets, and every victory, no matter how small, sent ripples of confidence through the Veridan population. Yet beneath this surge of hope, a quiet tension lingered. The Deathworlders were not motivated by glory or alliance. They were driven by something deeper, a relentless will to survive and dominate any challenge. Their tactics, though effective, were harsh and unyielding, and the Veridans knew the price of their intervention would be high. Still, in the face of destruction, the arrival of these strange, fierce humans was the spark that might save them all. As the night stretched on and the battle continued to rage in the cold expanse of space, the Veridans watched the Deathworlders push forward with an unstoppable force, cutting a path through the enemy lines. Each moment brought new tension, every explosion and burst of light a reminder that the future of their world hung in the balance. The Marauders, once confident and cruel, were now beginning to fear this new enemy whose resilience and strength refused to break. The story unfolding was one of survival and unexpected alliance, where a species born from a world of death itself had come to stand between destruction and hope. The Veridans understood that this was only the beginning, that the arrival of the Deathworlders had shifted the fate of their planet forever. Suspense gripped the stars as both friend and foe awaited the next move, knowing that the battle for survival had truly begun. The battles that raged above the Veridan surface and on the planet itself were fierce and unrelenting, a brutal test for both the Marauders and the new defenders who had come to stand against them. The Deathworlders, with their raw strength and relentless drive, quickly realized that brute force alone would not be enough to save the Veridans. They needed to understand the world they were fighting on and to forge a real connection with the native resistance fighters who knew their planet better than any outsider ever could. Slowly, alliances began to form between the hardened humans and the delicate but determined Veridan warriors. The Deathworlders shared their survival skills, teaching the Veridans how to use their once peaceful environment as a weapon against the invading forces. What had been seen as soft and vulnerable, dense jungles, jagged mountains, and deep ravines, became deadly traps and natural fortresses. The Veridans learned to set ambushes in the thick undergrowth, to hide in the shadows of the towering trees, and to use the unpredictable weather to their advantage. Storms that once only brought discomfort now masked their movements, while the twisting terrain slowed and confused the Marauders. The Veridans, once helpless and frightened, began to fight back with growing confidence and fierce determination, their spirits ignited by the Deathworlders' example. The invaders, who had expected an easy conquest, found themselves facing a resistance unlike any they had encountered before. Their arrogance was shattered as their soldiers fell victim to unseen dangers and expertly laid traps. The Deathworlders, too, adapted their tactics, combining their experience of harsh environments with the Veridans' knowledge of the terrain. Together, they became a force that was as clever as it was powerful. Yet, amid these successes, the Deathworlders uncovered a threat that shook even their hardened hearts. A secret weapon hidden deep within the Marauders' command structure, a device capable of unleashing destruction on a scale that could wipe out entire star systems. The weapon's purpose was terrifying: to spread chaos and fear beyond the Veridan system, ensuring the Marauders' dominance over a vast area of space. Recognizing the catastrophic potential of this weapon, the Deathworlders intensified their efforts to find and neutralize it before it could be activated. The Veridans watched with mounting dread as the humans planned a daring mission to infiltrate the enemy's stronghold, knowing that failure could mean not only the loss of their world but devastation for countless others. Suspense grew as the Allied forces prepared for what would be the turning point of the conflict, a battle that would demand every ounce of courage, skill, and unity they could muster. The once fragile Veridan society was now transformed, standing shoulder to shoulder with the Deathworlders against a common enemy. Every skirmish, every strategy, and every sacrifice was leading to this moment. The fate of their home and the future of the entire sector rested on the success of this alliance and the ability to confront a power far greater than anyone had imagined. In this crucible of war, the Veridans discovered their own strength, forged through the fire of adversity and the example of their unexpected human allies. The turning tide had begun, but the hardest battles were still ahead, and the shadow of the Marauders' secret weapon loomed over every step they took. The moment to strike had arrived, and the Deathworlders prepared for their most dangerous mission yet, a daring assault deep into the heart of enemy territory to disable the Marauders' secret weapon before it could unleash destruction beyond imagining. The weapon was hidden within a fortress-like installation on a remote barren moon, guarded by the toughest Marauder soldiers and protected by layers of defense systems designed to crush any attackers. The Deathworlders knew they could not rely on overwhelming numbers or reinforcements. They had limited resources and no backup could reach them if things went wrong. Yet their resolve was ironclad. These were warriors forged on a planet where survival meant pushing beyond every limit, where giving up was never an option. They moved swiftly and silently through the shadowed corridors of the enemy base, using every lesson learned from their harsh homeworld and from fighting alongside the Veridan resistance. Each step forward was filled with tension and danger, as traps and enemy patrols threatened to end the mission at any moment. The Veridans, watching from their hidden positions, on the surface of their recovering homeworld, felt a mix of hope and anxiety. Inspired by the fierce courage of the humans, they themselves rose up across the planet, reclaiming city after city from the Marauders with a new strength born of determination and unity. Their once fragile voices grew into a powerful chorus of resistance, echoing through the ruined streets and shattered landscapes. The final battle was unlike anything the sector had ever seen, a brutal clash where every victory was paid for with sweat and sacrifice. The Marauders fought with desperate fury, unwilling to lose their grip on a prize they had taken with violence. Yet, the Deathworlders and Veridans fought as one, their combined will breaking through walls of resistance that once seemed impenetrable. The battle raged both in space and on the ground, a storm of fire and metal where heroes were made and legends born. The Deathworlders' unyielding spirit shone brightest when faced with overwhelming odds, their crews repairing ships in the middle of battle and returning to the fight with grim determination. Meanwhile, the Veridans, once fragile and fearful, moved with the boldness of those who fight not only for survival, but for the right to live in peace. As the humans breached the inner sanctum of the Marauder fortress, disabling the secret weapon became a race against time. Every second counted, and failure would mean the annihilation of entire star systems. With careful precision, the Deathworlders dismantled the weapon's core, their hands steady despite the chaos surrounding them. When the final connection was severed, a shockwave of relief passed through the Allied forces. The tide had turned irrevocably. The Marauders, now leaderless and disorganized, could no longer hold their ground. One by one, their ships fell, their soldiers surrendered, and their empire of terror crumbled. Peace, fragile but real, began to settle over the Veridan system and the wider sector. The cost had been high, with losses on both sides that weighed heavily on the hearts of all who fought. Yet, amid the ruins, there was a sense of new beginnings, of worlds saved and alliances forged through the fire of war. The Deathworlders stood side by side with the Veridans, not as conquerors but as guardians, their mission fulfilled but their watch not ended. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again, and the story of how a fierce fleet from a Deathworld had answered a simple SOS to save an entire species would be told for generations. As the stars slowly returned to their peaceful dance, the survivors knew that this final stand was not just a battle won, but a promise kept, a promise that no matter how dark the night, the light of courage and hope would never be extinguished. With the echoes of battle fading and the once ravaged Veridan homeworld beginning to heal, a profound transformation swept across both species as new bonds were forged in the fire of shared struggle. The Veridans, who had faced destruction and despair, now stood united in gratitude, their voices carrying deep respect and admiration for the Deathworlders, the humans whose fierce courage and unyielding spirit had turned the tide when all hope seemed lost. The Veridan leaders, once cautious and unsure, approached the Deathworlders with an offer of alliance, knowing that the strength they had witnessed was not just physical, but something deeper, a resilience born from harsh worlds and relentless challenges. The humans, though hardened by countless trials and battle-scarred, accepted this offer with quiet honor, recognizing that their survival skills and determination had altered the balance of power in the galaxy forever. This alliance was not born out of convenience or fleeting necessity, but from a mutual respect earned through sacrifice and shared victories. As news of the Deathworlders' intervention spread through the galactic community, whispers and discussions ignited across countless star systems. The once dismissive views of humanity were challenged by tales of their fierce determination and tactical brilliance in the Veridan conflict. Many species, long skeptical of human resolve, began to reconsider their assumptions, realizing that the Deathworlders were not merely survivors of a brutal planet, but warriors who could shape the fate of entire civilizations. This newfound respect was accompanied by caution, a warning woven through every story. Underestimate the Deathworlders at your own peril. The humans themselves did not seek glory or conquest, but their presence now carried a weight that no one could ignore. Their fleet, battle-worn yet formidable, prepared to depart the Veridan system, leaving behind a legacy far greater than victories or destroyed enemies. They left hope, a fragile but powerful gift to a world that had nearly been lost. They left respect, earned through deeds that spoke louder than words. And they left a clear message to the galaxy, that humanity, born from a death world where only the toughest survived, was a force to be reckoned with. The Veridans, forever changed by this encounter, looked to the future with new strength and determination. Their alliance with the Deathworlders opened doors to shared knowledge, defense, and survival strategies that would protect their world for generations to come. Together, they had proven that even in the darkest moments, cooperation and courage could light a path forward. As the Deathworlder fleet slowly vanished into the star-studded horizon, the Veridans stood united, ready to rebuild, to protect, and to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The story of this unlikely alliance was just beginning, a tale of survival, respect, and the enduring power of unexpected friendship. The galaxy, forever altered by these events, would remember the day when a desperate SOS called out into the void and was answered by a force born of hardship and strength. And though the Deathworlders had moved on, their warning echoed across the stars, a promise etched in the hearts of all who witnessed their arrival. To challenge the Deathworlders was to face a relentless storm, a storm that would not be stopped until victory was claimed or the last breath was taken.